I never thought a single moment could change everything, but pain has a way of rewriting the rules. 1 second, I was strong, independent, the woman who could handle anything. The next, I was on my knees, frozen, helpless, as a sharp bolt of pain ripped through my back, stealing my breath. The pot slipped from my hands, shattering against the stone floor, but I barely heard it. All I knew was that I couldn't move. And just when I thought I was completely alone in this agony, I heard footsteps, rushed, urgent, and then his voice, calling my name. I felt trapped inside my own body. The pain was unrelenting, a deep, searing ache that locked me in place, making even the smallest movement unbearable. My breathing was shallow, my fingers trembling against the cold ground as I struggled to push myself up. But I couldn't. I was stranded, helpless, alone. And then, I wasn't. A shadow moved beside me, a presence so sudden, so close, that my breath hitched in my throat. His voice cut through the silence, firm, urgent. "Evelyn, what happened?" I didn't have the strength to look up right away, but I knew that voice. Adam. My late husband's godson. I hadn't seen him in months, but here he was, towering over me, concern written in his dark, steady eyes. He knelt beside me, his brows furrowed, scanning my face as if trying to read the pain I was too stubborn to admit. I can't move, I finally managed, my voice barely above a whisper. I hated the vulnerability in those words, but Adam didn't hesitate. His hands were on me before I could protest, strong, warm, and steady. His fingers pressed lightly against my lower back, testing the muscles, his touch firm but careful, as if I might break beneath him. "You've strained it badly," he said, voice low, thoughtful. "I can help. Just trust me." Trust. That was a dangerous word. I should have resisted, told him I'd be fine. But I wasn't fine. And as his hands moved with practiced ease, as warmth spread through me in ways I hadn't felt in so long, I realized something unsettling. The pain was fading. But the feeling taking its place? That was something far more dangerous. "Come on, let me help you inside," Adam said, his voice steady, but there was something else beneath it. Concern? Determination? I couldn't tell. I wanted to refuse, to insist I was fine, but the truth clung to me like the chill in the air. I wasn't fine. My back ached with every breath, my muscles locked tight as if protesting even the thought of movement. And so, before I could second-guess myself, I felt his arm wrap around my waist, firm and unwavering, guiding me to my feet. The moment I leaned into him, I felt it, that undeniable presence. Solid. Warm. A stark contrast to the cold loneliness I had carried for far too long. Each step toward the house felt heavier than the last, but not because of the pain. No, it was something else entirely. Something thick in the air between us, something I wasn't ready to name. The door creaked open, and warmth washed over me. The fire had already been lit, its golden glow flickering against the walls, casting long shadows that danced like whispers of a secret yet to be spoken. Adam led me toward the couch, his movements careful, calculated. He spread out a soft blanket before motioning for me to lie down. "This will help. Just relax," he said. I hesitated for a second too long. The air between us felt different now, denser, heavier, charged with an energy I couldn't ignore. But then the pain flared again, sharp and unforgiving, and I let out a small, involuntary gasp. That was all it took. Adam was already reaching for a bottle of soothing balm, his hands working the cap open with ease. "I'll warm it up first," he murmured, rubbing the balm between his palms. I swallowed hard as I watched him. The firelight illuminated his skin, his fingers gliding together in slow, measured movements. And then, finally, his hands met my skin. A shiver ran through me, not from the cold, not from pain, but from something else entirely. Something I didn't want to acknowledge. Something I didn't know how to stop. I closed my eyes, exhaling slowly, but the moment I did, I felt it even more, the weight of his touch, the deliberate care in every motion. This was nothing. Just a massage. Just relief. At least, that's what I kept telling myself. But as his fingers pressed deeper, as his voice softened in the glow of the fire, I realized a terrifying truth. It wasn't just my body waking up. It was something else. Something I had buried long ago. And now, there was no stopping. The fire crackled, its warmth wrapping around me like a cocoon, but it wasn't enough to explain the heat spreading beneath my skin. It wasn't the flames, wasn't the bomb, wasn't even the relief from the pain. It was his touch. Steady. Intentional. A force I had no defense against. Adam's hands moved in slow, controlled strokes, his fingertips pressing deep into the knots in my back, unraveling tension I didn't even know I carried. Every time he pressed a little deeper, I felt my body surrendering, but my mind? My mind was waging a war I wasn't sure I could win. This is wrong. He's just helping you. But if that was true, why did my pulse quicken every time his fingers lingered just a little too long? Why did my breath catch when his thumb grazed the bare skin just beneath my shoulder blade? I think you need this more than you realize, he murmured, his voice low, thoughtful. My eyes fluttered open. What do you mean? His hands stilled for a moment before resuming their slow, steady rhythm. You do so much for everyone else, Evelyn. But who's taking care of you? His words hit harder than they should have. I didn't have an answer. Because the truth? No one had. Not for a long, long time. My lips parted to say something, anything, but before I could find the words, Adam shifted beside me. I heard the soft rustle of fabric, the whisper of cotton sliding over skin, and when I turned my head slightly, I saw it. He had pulled off his sweater. The firelight flickered over his toned arms, casting shadows that accentuated every muscle, every ridge. My breath hitched, and before I could stop myself, my gaze traced over the broad expanse of his chest, down to the subtle lines of his abdomen. Heat rushed through me, hotter than the fire, heavier than the guilt pressing at the edges of my mind. I looked away, but it was too late. He had seen. For a moment, neither of us spoke. The only sounds were the crackling fire and the deep, measured rise and fall of his breath. And then, slowly, deliberately, he reached out, his fingertips brushing against my arm, a touch so light, so fleeting, yet it sent a shockwave through me. I should have pulled away. But I didn't. I shifted slightly, turning toward him, and in that instant, everything changed. His eyes, deep, unreadable, searching, locked onto mine. And in them, I saw it. The hesitation. The restraint. The silent battle raging behind those dark irises. The space between us felt too small. Or maybe it wasn't the space at all, maybe it was the weight of something neither of us had spoken aloud. I swallowed hard, forcing my breath to steady. Adam, I started, but my voice barely made it past my lips before he reached for my hand. His touch was deliberate this time. No hesitation. No question. His thumb stroked over my knuckles, slow, measured, igniting something in me that had been dormant for far too long. I didn't move. I couldn't move. Because for the first time in years, I wasn't just existing. I was feeling. And then, without a word, he leaned in. The warmth of his breath brushed against my cheek, sending a shiver down my spine. I could stop this. Right now. A single word, a single movement, and this moment would vanish like a dream upon waking. But I didn't. I let him come closer. And when his lips finally met mine, the world stilled. The first touch was hesitant, uncertain, like neither of us could quite believe this was happening. But then, something inside me cracked open. The weight of loneliness, of longing, of years spent ignoring the parts of myself that still craved to be seen, it all shattered in a single heartbeat. The kiss deepened. His hands moved, one slipping to the back of my neck, the other resting at my waist, fingers pressing just enough to pull me closer. I should have felt guilty. I should have stopped. But nothing had ever felt more right. When we finally pulled back, breathless, I saw something new in his gaze. Something raw. Something real. "Evelyn," he whispered, his forehead resting against mine. "I've been trying to ignore this. Trying to push it away. But I can't. Not anymore." I should have been shocked. But I wasn't. Because I had known it too. Felt it too. And as my fingers curled into the fabric of his shirt, my voice shook, but my words were clear. "I want this." And just like that, the last barrier crumbled. The fire crackled beside us, its golden glow flickering over the room, but the warmth that enveloped me had nothing to do with the flames. It was him. His hands, his breath, the way his body pressed against mine, solid, real, undeniable. I had spent years building walls around myself, convincing my heart that longing was a thing of the past. But tonight, those walls crumbled. There was no logic, no hesitation left to fight against. The moment had found us, consumed us, and now, there was no turning back. Adam moved with careful certainty, his touch reverent, as if he knew this wasn't just about desire. It was about something deeper, something fragile. His lips found mine again, this time with less restraint, and as my fingers traced the contours of his back, a quiet sigh escaped me. It felt inevitable. Like this was where we had been heading all along, even if we had tried to resist it. Every touch, every breath, every lingering glance, it was all building into something unspoken but deeply understood. And then, there was nothing but the sound of our heartbeats, the fire's slow burn, and the feeling of finally being seen, finally being held, in a way I had forgotten I even needed. The quiet afterward felt louder than anything. I lay there, staring at the ceiling, my body still humming with the aftershocks of everything we had just surrendered to. My heart raced, my mind spun, and yet I felt strangely at peace. Beside me, Adam shifted, propping himself up on one elbow. The firelight cast shadows across his face, highlighting the soft intensity in his expression. His hand lifted, fingertips grazing my cheek with an aching tenderness. "I've wanted this for so long," he murmured, his voice barely above a whisper. I turned to him, searching his face, trying to find hesitation, regret, something that mirrored the conflict still bubbling beneath my skin. But all I saw was certainty. A lump formed in my throat. Adam, his hand moved down, fingers tracing the curve of my jaw, the slope of my collarbone, before resting lightly on my arm. "Tell me you don't feel it too," he said. I wanted to say something. Anything. But words failed me. Because I did feel it. The years of solitude, the endless nights of longing for something I couldn't even name, the quiet ache of wanting to be wanted, it had all led to this. Guilt curled at the edges of my mind, whispering that this was reckless, dangerous. But there was something else, too. Something stronger. Hope. I swallowed hard, closing my eyes for a brief second. When I opened them again, Adam was still there, watching me, waiting. So instead of answering, I reached for his hand, lacing my fingers through his. And for the first time in years, I allowed myself to believe that maybe, just maybe, I wasn't meant to be alone after all. The weight of the night lingered in the air, thick with emotions I wasn't sure how to name. Everything had changed. There was no undoing it, no pretending it hadn't happened. And yet, I wasn't afraid. The loneliness I had carried for years, the quiet ache of being unseen, untouched, felt lighter now, like a burden I hadn't realized was crushing me until it was lifted. I turned my head slowly, my eyes meeting Adam's. He didn't say a word. He didn't need to. That small, knowing smile tugged at his lips, and in it, I saw something unshakable, reassurance, a silent promise that he wasn't going anywhere. But was that enough? Because beneath the warmth, beneath the comfort, a different kind of weight settled over me. This wasn't just a fleeting moment. This was a line crossed. A door opened. And once a door like this is open, can it ever truly be closed again? I closed my eyes, inhaling deeply, allowing myself, just for a moment, to sink into this unfamiliar feeling. To accept the reality of what we had just done. Was this a reckless mistake? Or the start of something neither of us saw coming? What happens when a single moment shifts everything you thought you knew? When a touch, a look, a whispered confession changes the course of your life forever? Would you have stopped it? Or would you have let it happen, just like I did? Let me know your thoughts in the comments. And if you want to hear more stories like this, stories that blur the lines between right and wrong, stories that pull you into the depths of human desire and emotion, make sure you like this video, subscribe to the channel, and turn on notifications. Because the next story? It might just make you question everything you thought you knew about love, temptation, and the choices we can never take back. Asterisk.